It began, as most catastrophes do, with a weird Tuesday. One moment you're minding your business, doom-scrolling while eating cereal that technically expired during the Obama administration, and the next, bam! Suddenly you're seeing colors around people. Not in a fun, ate some wacky mushrooms kind of way, but in a disturbingly HD, real-time glowing halo effect that looks like your yoga teacher in a Christmas tree had an unauthorized baby. And it's not just you. Everyone sees it. Globally. Simultaneously. Welcome to humanity's grand entrance in a full-blown Aura vision, where every person now has a personal color-coded Wi-Fi signal of emotion, intent, and inner vibe radiating off their body like a personality pop-up ad. It's as if someone turned off reality's parental controls and let us peek into everyone's soul. And spoiler alert, it's messy. At first, it's glorious. Social media explodes because of course it does. Hashtag Aura Talk trends faster than conspiracy theories at a family reunion. Influencers are suddenly judged not by their filters, but by the quality of their glows. You got people live streaming their aura transformations like Pokemon evolutions. Guys, my anxiety orange just faded into peaceful green after 5 minutes of screaming into a pillow and drinking oat milk. Wellness apps pivot so hard they dislocate their metaphorical hips, marketing things like glow boosters and aura detox juice, which is 80% lemon and 20% regret. But things get weird fast, because as it turns out, seeing people's auras means seeing everything. Love, rage, shame, guilt, bathroom anxiety, passive-aggressive thoughts about Denise from HR, all wrapped in luminescent colored blobs that follow people like confused jellyfish. Suddenly, there's no more hiding your feelings, no more fake smiles at dinner parties, no more pretending you're fine when your aura is practically on fire, and screaming, "I hate this conversation" in fluorescent red. Extroverts go feral, finally able to see who actually likes talking to them. Introverts curl up like armadillos, their pale blue auras flickering nervously whenever someone says networking event. Relationships implode at record speed, not because people were lying before, but because now they can't not know when their partners glow. Turns from romantic lavender to mildly annoyed taupe. Parents see their kids' little flickering energy clouds change shades during TikTok binges. Teachers start using aura detention. "Jason, I can see your boredom." It's glowing chartreuse. Go stand in the corner and think colorful thoughts. Therapists are booked for the next 4 decades, mostly to help people cope with the trauma of realizing that Karen from accounting has a permanent aura that radiates vague evil mixed with forgot to shower. And religion? Oh, buddy. Every spiritual community goes into absolute overdrive trying to explain this whole phenomenon. Is it divine? Is it a mass hallucination? Is it aliens again? The Vatican releases a statement saying we're cautiously optimistic but also slightly terrified. Meanwhile, some cult in Arizona claims they predicted this in 1997 after a particularly potent ayahuasca retreat and began selling aura-proof robes. Science, being science, tries to jump in with reason. Researchers claim it's a neurological shift triggered by climate change, radio waves, and unresolved collective trauma from watching too many dystopian reboots. Others suggest it's a mutation, some sort of perceptual upgrade like when you realize wasabi isn't actually meant to be eaten like guacamole. But while everyone's arguing over why it's happening, the real chaos is in how we deal with it. Like office meetings, for instance, now an explosive blend of glowing power struggles and passive shade battles. You can literally see your boss's irritation whenever someone suggests yet another brainstorming session about synergy. Dating turns into a full-on gladiator sport of aura flexing. Gone are the days of wondering if someone's into you. Now their aura practically projects a PowerPoint presentation. Slide 1, mild attraction. Slide 2, deep-rooted fear of commitment. Slide 3, really liked your playlist. Political debates become glowing thunderdomes. Candidates are no longer judged by their speeches, but by their emotional glow consistency. Sure, he says he supports healthcare, but his aura flickered brown when he mentioned deductibles. Sus. But perhaps the most unsettling revelation of all comes from realizing that you are also being seen. Fully. Constantly. No more poker faces. No more hiding behind sarcasm, sunglasses, or the phrase, "I'm fine." Your aura is a walking neon sign advertising your mental state like a human stock ticker. At first, this is terrifying. But slowly, very slowly, something strange starts to happen. We begin to empathize. You see someone with a dark storm cloud aura at the grocery store, and instead of avoiding them, you ask if they're okay. Kids start calling out adults when their auras scream anxiety. Strangers form friendships based not on shared hobbies but on resonance, because your purple glows match like interstellar mood rings. The world becomes honest. Messy, loud, awkward, but honest. And in a world that used to run on hiding, that honesty becomes revolutionary. Now that humanity had officially unlocked our gun vision, or what the news cycles began calling the Great Glowing, because we apparently can't name anything without turning it into a Netflix original, things got weird in the most predictable way. We started monetizing the hell out of it. Capitalism didn't just walk into this brave new glowing world. It sprinted in wearing LED sneakers, holding a limited edition, mood-reactive coffee mug that changed color based on your chakra alignment. Overnight, the fashion industry went into full aura frenzy. It wasn't enough to dress well anymore. Now you had to accessorize your emotional light field. Entire design houses shifted from fabric textures to vibrational palettes. Gucci released a line of aura-neutral clothing designed to harmonize with any shade of anxiety. Balenciaga dropped a $5,000 cape made of energy-dampening nanofiber meant to mute your emotional sparkle in high-pressure networking environments. And let's not even talk about the underground black market of aura-concealing hoodies being sold to billionaires, celebrities, and awkward teenagers just trying to survive high school without broadcasting their social panic and ultraviolet shame glow. Schools predictably turned into color-coded psychological battlefields. Popular kids weaponized their peppy neon orange auras like social torches, forming elite lunchroom factions like the Radiant Seven or Mood Mafia. Meanwhile, goth kids suddenly became the subject of paranormal speculation because their perpetual violet-black haze started interfering with the cafeteria's Wi-Fi signal. Teachers had to be retrained not just in curriculum but in aura management. New protocols included glow breaks during exams, aura consent policies before classroom discussions, and mandatory mindfulness meditations if more than 3 students were glowing red during geometry. Sports? Oh, you sweet summer child. Auravision transformed athletics into full-blown Dragon Ball Z episodes. Soccer became a spectacle of glowing rage tackles and empathy feints. Tennis players had auras that pulsed with every backhand. Wrestlers started psyching each other out by deliberately shifting their aura, mid-match from murder green to compassionate coral, which was deeply confusing and oddly moving. Meanwhile, corporate life got an entire personality transplant. Forget resumes. Now your aura was your CV. Interviews involved HR managers analyzing your glow patterns like spiritual radiologists. We love your portfolio, David, but during our synergy discussion, your aura turned a shade of guilty beige. That's a red flag. Open plan offices became aura war zones. Slack notifications triggered waves of yellow stress flashes. Team building retreats involved aura matching workshops and emotional karaoke, where co-workers glowed in harmony while butchering Celine Dion ballads under the influence of overpriced kombucha. But the biggest winners in this chaos: dating apps. Oh yes. Welcome to the age of Aura Match, the wildly successful platform that promised to find your glowmate based on the vibrational frequency of your soul blob. The old swiping system was replaced with real-time aura scans. You'd get matched not based on location or hobbies, but on whether your existential sadness harmonized with someone else's unresolved childhood trauma in a sexy shade of magenta. People were obsessed. First dates became full-blown vibe evaluations. No more, what do you do for fun? Now it was, why did your aura dim when I mentioned brunch? Romance was no longer about mystery. It was about managing your glow in candlelight to avoid projecting unprocessed emotional baggage into your pasta. And of course, drama followed. Cheaters were caught within seconds. Your partner might be saying, I love you, but if their aura turned from fuchsia to a suspiciously guilty periwinkle, you better start checking their DMs. Love triangles became a literal spectrum war. Divorces skyrocketed after couples realized they hadn't shared a matching aura tone in over 5 years. Meanwhile, polyamorous communities found a renaissance in the ability to visually navigate complex emotional constellations without needing 12 hours of group processing. Therapy, which had already been booming, evolved into a full-on aura, a diagnostic industry. New Age psychologists armed with crystal-powered goggles and Bluetooth-connected glow charts began mapping clients' emotional arcs like astrological weather reports. You've been stuck in melancholy teal for 3 weeks. Let's try screaming into a forest and microdosing accountability. Of course, not everyone embraced this glowing utopia. A new class of privacy absolutists emerged, People who believed aura visibility was a violation of basic human rights. They formed advocacy groups like Let Me Be Dim, lobbied governments to create aura non-disclosure zones, and staged dramatic protests where they wore tinfoil jumpsuits and yelled, "My glow is not your business," in shopping malls. Meanwhile, governments struggled to legislate what was rapidly becoming the most visible form of emotional data on Earth. Could aura be used in court as evidence? Was it ethical to glow check your employees? Could glowing dishonestly, like faking joy in a job interview, be classified as emotional fraud? Laws were drafted, challenged, revoked, rewritten, screamed over on cable news, and miffed by the internet into glittering chaos. But beneath the hysteria and commercial exploitation, something quietly shifted. People began paying attention, real attention, to how others felt. You couldn't walk by someone glowing despair and pretend you didn't see it. Strangers started offering comfort, not because they had to, but because ignoring a glowing sadness felt cruel. Friendships deepened. Conversations became realer. That coworker you never talked to? Turns out their aura pulses a beautiful indigo when they laugh. The barista who seemed cold? Their nervous yellow glow suggests they're fighting through a panic attack just to hand you your latte. We were just beginning to understand each other in a way no app, no personality quiz, no awkward small talk could ever reveal. But as we'll see in the next part, when secrets start glowing too, the real danger isn't in what we feel, it's in what we choose to show. By the time auras had cemented themselves as the sixth sense of human society, sandwiched neatly between the ability to smell old socks and understand Excel macros, corporations had seized the glowing opportunity like raccoons discovering an unattended dumpster full of radioactive cheesecake. If you thought office politics were soul-crushing before people could literally see your soul broadcasting in pastel, welcome to the golden age of corporate aura warfare. Let's start at the top. Boardrooms now required aura sanitizers. CEOs wouldn't start meetings until everyone's glow was vibrationally aligned with company values, which is corporate speak for pretend you're not dead inside. Middle managers took courses on aura reading body language and deployed phrases like, "Your energy is not synergizing with Q3 deliverables," while standing under Himalayan salt chandeliers, which didn't do anything except raise the electricity bill and trigger fire code violations. Human resources, once the sleepy den of paperwork and passive-aggressive potluck reminders, mutated into the Aura Compliance Division. They now ran routine scans for emotional misconduct. Show up to work pulsing crimson stress more than twice a week. That's a mandatory emotional rebalancing seminar and a 20-minute accountability hug from Brenda in HR, whose aura has been aggressively lime green since 1994. And God help you if you worked in customer service. The service industry became a minefield of emotional optics. You couldn't just say, "Have a nice day." You had to glow it. Retail workers wore mood-modulating bracelets that buzzed when their aura dipped below acceptably cheerful. Complaints surged. Not about service speed or order accuracy, but because someone's glow was a little too beige to be sincere. Restaurants developed aura-sensitive menus. Waiters handed out personalized dish recommendations based on your emotional forecast. "You're emanating heartbreak blue. May I suggest a double fudge existential crisis cake with a side of onion rings?" Naturally, capitalism adapted. Employers now hired based on glow scores. Job interviews looked like laser tag mixed with clairvoyance. Instead of resumes, applicants submitted aura reels, short videos of themselves reacting to various stimuli like inspirational speeches, dog videos, or being gently insulted by a focus group to test for emotional resilience, glow consistency, and whether your soul radiated the kind of premium brand synergy needed for a future in selling mid-tier mayonnaise. But not all glows were created equal. A new class system emerged, not based on wealth or connections, but on aura purity. Enter the emotional elite. These were the people whose auras never glitched, never flickered into weird mustard yellow self-doubt, never collapsed into unwashed peach regret. They glow like spiritual influencers with built-in ring lights. They became the new gods of LinkedIn. Their posts just close a deal while glowing serene lavender #bless #Aura Strong dominated timelines and made the rest of us question whether crying in the shower counted as spiritual exfoliation. Entire schools popped up offering aura coaching. For the low price of $3,999, you could attend a weekend retreat where a former life coach turned vibrational ninja yelled affirmations at you while you sat in a geodesic dome full of fermented kale fog. There were books, 7 glows for highly effective people, Glow Up, the corporate mystic's guide to aura domination, and who could forget Eat, Pray, Pulse, one woman's journey through divorce and cantaloupe-colored healing? Self-help became a spiritual arms race. But while the emotional elite thrived, the rest of society cracked. Workers in high-pressure jobs found themselves disqualified not for lack of skill, but for leaking emotional fatigue. You're the best brain surgeon in the tri-state area, Dr. Patel, but your aura's been giving off unresolved resentment since the budget cuts. We're replacing you with Chad. His emotional palette is a radiant cornflower blue and he does CrossFit. People began faking their glows. Underground tech shops emerged, selling illegal aura filters, cloaking devices you could wear under your shirt to modulate your emotional output. Feeling despair? Project success? Hate your boss? Emit admiration? Dying inside? Radiate teal hope? Of course, governments got involved. New biometric ID systems now include your emotional signature. Certain glow frequencies were flagged as national security risks. Border patrols didn't just scan your passport, they scanned your vibe. Try explaining your holiday anxiety to a customs agent staring at your burnt orange guilt cloud like it's a suspicious carry-on item. Meanwhile, marketing firms went feral. Billboards could now read your aura and customize ads in real time. You're walking home after a breakup, glowing heartbreak purple, and bam! An ad for weighted blankets, romantic comedies, and single-person lasagna delivery pops up. Having a panic attack in public? Here's a QR code for a limited-time trial of Auracom, the app that turns your phone into a handheld spiritual diffuser powered by sponsored mantras from Gwyneth Paltrow. Predictably, there were protests. Disenfranchised glowers took to the streets. My mood is not monetizable read signs. Aura unions formed. Civil rights activists began demanding glow equality legislation. It was all the 1960s all over again, but this time with more neon and less cigarette smoke. But amid the chaos, something deeper simmered. Because while society raced to control, measure, and profit from what we could see, no one stopped to ask the question no one wanted to face. What about the emotions we don't want others to see? The shame, the rage, the dark glows we bury under productivity and polite conversation. What happens when those begin to leak through? And what if they start glowing on their own? There comes a moment in every civilization's timeline, somewhere after discovering indoor plumbing, but before everyone gets a neural TikTok implant where a shiny innovation breaks through the barrier of novelty and lands squarely in the middle of everyone's existential trauma like a flaming yoga ball. That moment came to humanity when the auras began leaking. Yes, leaking. Not dripping like a leaky faucet, which would be quaint and maybe even poetic, but projecting. Like emotional supernovas exploding across Starbucks lines, train stations, dentist offices, and middle school parent-teacher conferences. You could no longer contain a bad day. You could no longer slap on a fake smile and shuffle through your spreadsheet while humming Eye of the Tiger into your ergonomic keyboard. Your aura betrayed you, and worse, it amplified you. It was like your soul went off its meds and joined a death metal band called Subconscious Mayhem. For the average person, this meant that the tiniest irritation, say stubbing your toe, or someone breathing wrong in your vicinity, triggered a visible red spike of fury that looked like a lightsaber duel happening inside your torso. Some people learned to meditate, control their glow. Others joined underground aura-suppressing communes where everyone wore blackout suits and practiced the ancient art of emotional constipation. But for most of us, it was open season on secrets. Because here's the thing, the longer we live with aura vision, the harder it became to keep things buried. The human brain, in its infinite psychological brilliance, had always excelled at repression. You don't want to think about that time you called your teacher mom in 8th grade? Boom, mental attic, locked door. Never speak of it again. But now, That door was off its hinges, the attic was on fire, and your aura was glowing hot pink with residual embarrassment every time someone said "Mrs." in a sentence. Suppressed emotions started erupting in public like emotional geysers. People were breaking down in elevators, at weddings, in drive-thrus, at the DMV. Okay, that one wasn't new. The whole world was becoming one giant group therapy session where nobody asked for the Zoom link. Entire families imploded over long-buried secrets. Imagine Thanksgiving dinner where your aunt glows chartreuse every time someone mentions her book club, which turns out to be a casino trip and secret second husband named Dale. Marriages collapsed as hidden resentments manifested in full radiant display. "I love you" now had to pass through an unblinking aura audit that lit up the dining room like a Christmas rave. Of course, the tech companies promised solutions. Silicon Valley rolled out aura management systems with all the ethical concern of a toddler launching a toaster into a bathtub. These systems offer you the ability to buffer your glow, putting a 3-second delay between your emotions and your external color. Like live television, but for your emotional dysfunction. It was wildly popular among politicians, CEOs, serial cheaters, and anyone working in customer service. But nothing could stop what came next. The rise of dark glows. These weren't just sad or angry auras. These were the kind of emotional frequencies that made plants wilt, made babies cry, made Bluetooth connections drop mysteriously. They weren't even technically colors, more like emotional static, like a hole in the visible spectrum where shame, grief, and existential dread took turns DJing a silent disco of doom. No one knew where they came from. Some said they were the result of years, decades of unprocessed trauma finally bubbling to the surface now that repression had lost its glow-dampening powers. Others claimed it was a glitch in the aura field, maybe caused by all the experimental frequency filters people have been slapping on themselves like spiritual duct tape. The conspiracy crowd, those delightful tinfoil-fondling philosophers of the fringe, insisted it was a secret weapon developed by governments to destabilize public morale, like emotional EMPs that turn normal people into weeping, quivering puddles by projecting unresolved mommy issues into the air like psychic Wi-Fi. But regardless of origin, one thing was certain. Dark glows were contagious. Not in a physical sense, though one person's shadow burst of repressed guilt could clear out a bus stop. But emotionally, you saw someone glowing that terrifying colorless color, and suddenly your own aura began to flicker, falter, collapse inward like a dying star. Society panicked. People stopped making eye contact in public for fear of catching someone's emotional implosion. Aura blockers became the new face masks. Introverts became survival gurus overnight. I told you all. They whispered from their pillow forts, sipping calming tea brewed from resentment and smugness. Religion naturally had a field day. Churches began offering glow confessionals where sinners could sit under a color-masking dome and purge their sins without judgment. Some claimed their auras turned from moldy regret to gentle forgiveness pink. Others just screamed into the void while a priest hummed Taylor Swift's greatest hits. But in all this swirling madness of emotional transparency, a new class of people began to emerge, emotioneers. These were individuals who had not only mastered their own glows, but learned to manipulate others. They could project feelings, harmonize with strangers, even neutralize a dark glow with a carefully tuned empathy burst. Others were just emotionally intelligent baristas, but they became the new heroes of this glowing era. Wherever they went, chaos calmed. Arguments paused. Mobs disbanded. They didn't fix the world, but for a few minutes in a haze of chaotic color, they made people feel seen. Not judged, not exposed, just understood. And that was power. But power, as we know, never goes unnoticed. In the next part, we dive headfirst into the shadowy organizations, governmental glow experiments, and militarized aura units rising from the depths. Because if you thought controlling nuclear weapons was risky, wait till you see what happens when someone weaponizes feelings. It was only a matter of time before the glow hit the fan in a more official government-issued capacity. Because while the average person was out here accidentally broadcasting their jealousy over Chad's six-pack abs or glowing neon green with panic during a surprise meeting at work, the real power players of the world were quietly sweating uranium-grade bullets. Because secrets don't do well under literal full-spectrum emotional surveillance. The moment world leaders realized that even their poker faces now came with subtitles made of feelings, the scramble began, a frantic international race not for missiles or AI dominance, but for aura control. And boy, did they fumble it. At first, they tried denial. A few governments released delightfully unconvincing statements claiming Orsiles, a vision was a social media illusion, likely caused by 5G towers and kale smoothies. Meanwhile, their ambassadors were glowing orange with anxiety so hard they could have been mistaken for Chernobyl traffic cones. When denial failed, mostly because their spokespeople kept broadcasting shame purple, every time someone mentioned drone strikes, they pivoted to Plan B, technological suppression. Enter the military-industrial glow complex. Billions were funneled into black-budget projects with code names like Operation Souljammer, Project Hazecloak, and the extremely subtle Emotional Neutralization Initiative, either because even shadowy agencies need branding. Their goal? To create devices that could scramble, distort, or outright suppress or signatures. The result? An arsenal of gadgetry that would make Batman's therapist blush. There were stealth suits woven with emotion-absorbing nanofibers, worn by spies who could now walk through crowds broadcasting nothing but dead air. There were aura dampener drones that hovered over parliaments, humming ominously while politicians debated tax reform under a fog of bureaucratic grayscale. And for VIPs, they got high-end neural scramblers that simulated a monk-like calm, a fake emotional broadcast like Photoshop for your soul. It didn't take long for the public to catch on. Suddenly, anyone who wasn't glowing looked suspicious. Hell, if your aura was perfectly flat, you might as well have walked into a therapist's office holding a chainsaw and a manifesto. Transparency had become the new moral currency, and those who tampered with it were seen as emotional tax evaders. Civil unrest followed. Protests flared up with people glowing righteous indigo, demanding that their leaders show us your feels. Entire governments were accused of running double auras, a secret internal layer masking their true intentions while presenting a carefully curated emotional feed to the public, like using a puppy filter during a murder trial. Meanwhile, in the intelligence world, aura espionage became the new arms race. Gone were the days of listening devices and microfilms. Now spies were trained in emotional mimicry, taught to emulate aura patterns so precisely they could pass as someone else in a crowd of empaths. These elite agents, known in the classified world as chameleons, were capable of simulating trustworthiness while planning coups, blowing sympathy while committing fraud, and beaming affection while ghosting you after 6 perfect dates. The private sector naturally wanted in. Corporations started hiring aura analysts to screen employees not for skill, but for emotional loyalty. Job interviews included glow scans. Annual reviews factored in spiritual resonance. Entire departments were reorganized based on aura compatibility charts that looked suspiciously like horoscopes written by a drunk algorithm. Dating apps became even more horrifying. Now, instead of catfishing you with decade-old selfies, people could fake their emotional glow to appear like a warm, well-adjusted optimist when in reality, they were a tangled ball of red-hot resentment and lukewarm coffee breath. Aura filters were the new Instagram, with settings like serene sunrise, mysterious intensity, and definitely not thinking about my ex. And while all this corporate and governmental aura tampering was unfolding, the most elite players of the game were forming in the shadows, emotional mercenaries. These were the rogue emotioneers, outcasts, hackers, glow smugglers, who sold their aura manipulation skills to the highest bidder. They could boost morale in a war zone, destabilize a political campaign with a targeted burst of despair, or infiltrate a boardroom by sinking to the CEO's childhood abandonment issues. They were modern-day emotional ninjas, trading in vibes instead of weapons, but just as dangerous. Some operated in the black market, offering under-the-table aura shielding to celebrities and billionaires. Others became cult leaders, claiming they could align your aura with the Earth's magnetic field if you paid $499.99 and agreed to a 14-day gluten cleanse. But not all was cloak and glow dagger. A resistance was forming. A ragtag coalition of whistleblowers, rogue therapists, spiritual anarchists, and that one guy who always brings crystals to potlucks began pushing back. They called themselves the Unfiltered. Their mission? To tear down the systems of synthetic aura manipulation and return humanity to raw, unedited emotional truth. No scramblers, no filters, no projection, Just pure, chaotic, vulnerable human glowing in all its embarrassing, inconvenient glory. They hacked corporate aura broadcasts, hijacking public glow boards to flash you're lying to yourself, Jared. They released exposés of sanitized emotional profiles. They glowed shame gold at press conferences. They were mocked, feared, arrested, but never ignored. Because deep down, even the most tech-scrambled executive knew the unfiltered had a point. If you can't trust the glow, what's left? In the next part, we descend deeper into the rise of the unfiltered, the emotional revolutions they sparked, and the global identity crisis that unfolded when humanity had to choose between raw authenticity and curated calm. While governments were busy playing Pokemon Go with people's emotions and megacorporations were scrambling to package synthetic empathy into subscription bundles, a quiet, and by quiet, I mean neon glowing, interpretive dance screaming, movement was taking shape on the digital margins. They called themselves the Unfiltered. And no, they weren't a punk band or a startup making organic deodorant. They were a rapidly growing rebellion of people who refused to censor their auras, wrap their feelings in shrink wrap, or pretend their lives weren't a steaming pile of beautiful chaos. These were the vibe anarchists, the soul streakers, the emotional nudists of the new era, and their manifesto was simple. Feel everything, show everything, glow everything. The movement started in the usual way. One emotionally over-caffeinated philosophy student live streamed his breakdown in front of a coffee shop, glowing a brilliant kaleidoscope of grief, self-loathing, and espresso-induced panic. Instead of pity, he got millions of views. Not because people enjoyed his suffering. Well, maybe a few did. The internet's weird. But because for once, someone was honest. That live stream, creatively titled I'm Crying and It's Fine, Susan, sparked what would become the emotional renaissance. The Unfiltered flooded social media with unedited glows, turning platforms once reserved for airbrushed brunch photos into raw galleries of existential dread, unspoken affection, and confusing lust for anime villains. Algorithms wept trying to classify this emotional mess. The movement grew. Universities formed unfiltered chapters where students gathered to glow in circles while reading slam poetry and screaming into jars. Corporations panicked when their HR departments were ambushed by employees glowing collective burnout and demanding mandatory nap pods and subsidized existential therapy. And in politics? Well, one senator tried to fake a passionate blue glow during a speech about healthcare and was immediately exposed by an unfiltered activist holding a "You Lying Beige" blob sign. The senator later resigned, citing spiritual incongruence. As the Unfiltered gained traction, emotional literacy soared. Children in schools were taught to recognize nuanced shades of jealousy, interpret parental disappointment glows, and express their trauma through interpretive color bursts. Dating became a chaotic but slightly more honest experience, where first dates involved sitting across from each other and watching your auras twist into awkward pretzels while you lied about loving jazz. Aura compatibility replaced horoscopes and love languages, leading to a whole new genre of couples therapy involving synchronized glow breathing and passive-aggressive color farts. Naturally, capitalism tried to assimilate the chaos. Influencers began branding themselves as raw glow-fluencers, selling overpriced guides to emotional minimalism while glowing serene pastel hues from Bali. Major brands launched campaigns like Feel It All Fridays, encouraging customers to post their most unstable emotional states alongside their new sneakers. There was even an award show, the Globies, where people won trophies for things like Most Relatable Meltdown and Sexiest Aura in a post-apocalyptic mood. But despite corporate co-opting, the movement's core remained defiantly authentic. That authenticity became contagious. World leaders who refused to show their true glows were mocked, memed, and eventually voted out. Celebrities who tried to scrub their auras clean were canceled faster than a Netflix original. The world began to value vulnerability over control, imperfection over polish, and wild, untamed emotion over robotic charisma. Not everyone was thrilled. The old guard glow scrubbers, emotional neutralists, and spiritually constipated bureaucrats tried to push back. They launched smear campaigns suggesting that too much honesty was destabilizing society, that feeling too much would lead to chaos. But the Unfiltered replied, yes, that's the point. And then they flash mobbed Parliament with a 400-person synchronized sob and dance routine titled, This Is What Suppression Feels Like, Trevor. It was art. Messy, slightly terrifying, but art. Somewhere between the raw glow concerts and street parades of synchronized emotional eruptions, the world realized something profound. We had been lying to each other with our faces, our voices, and even our carefully curated Spotify playlists. The aura, when left untouched, spoke truth in a way words never could. It was a confession, a connection, and a call to empathy. The unfiltered didn't fix the world, but they made it honest. And sometimes that's a better place to start than pretending everything's fine while your soul is clearly on fire, humming My Chemical Romance lyrics. In the next part, we dive into the aftermath of the global glow awakening, how society restructured itself around visible emotional truth, and the bizarre new etiquette that emerged when everyone knew exactly what you felt about their haircut before they even finished saying, "What do you think?" By the time the world settled into this glow-filled existence, we had reached what experts politely referred to as the emotional apocalypse adjacent period. Not because the world ended, but because everyone now knew exactly what their boss thought of their TPS reports, their mother-in-law's opinion of their casserole, and their dentist's deep, glowing resentment of molars. It turns out that being able to see everyone's unfiltered auras in high-def, surround sound emotional fluorescence was a lot. Too much. Like reading everyone's diary while simultaneously sitting inside their brain during a panic attack at IKEA. So, naturally, humanity did what it always does when faced with existential chaos. It made rules. Enter the International Glow Code, a 297-page document drafted at the first ever global conference of radiant people held in a neutral country known mostly for cheese and denial. The conference gathered spiritual leaders, diplomats, therapists, influencers, aura stylists, and one very confused guy who thought he was at a rave. The result was a set of etiquette laws so comprehensive, it made the Geneva Conventions look like a napkin sketch. For starters, unsolicited aura analysis was strictly prohibited. No more, "Whoa, Brenda, your colors are giving off real divorce vibes this morning." If you wanted to comment on someone's hue, you needed to express emotional consent, ideally notarized and delivered by a glowing carrier pigeon. Also banned, aura catfishing, the act of using synthetic supplements, refractive crystals, or emotional deepfake filters to manipulate your outward glow. This was especially rampant on dating apps, where one woman claimed she was radiating peaceful lavender, but turned out to be a screaming mass of neon red jealousy and unresolved trauma. She was later featured on a documentary called Swindled by the Spectrum. Then there was the issue of glow splashing, basically the aura version of a temper tantrum explosion in public. Before the code, people used to flare their auras wildly in train stations or coffee shops, projecting heartbreak like emotional Wi-Fi. Now, emotional containment zones were implemented in most cities. Think soundproof booths, but instead of noise, they blocked feelings. Need to rage? Step into the aura isolation pod and scream your metaphysical guts out while listening to whale sounds. Problem solved. The workplace had to reinvent itself entirely. Meetings were now conducted in neutral hue mode, where participants wore dimming cloaks to avoid broadcasting their boredom, hatred of their manager, or intense craving for a burrito. Job interviews were a special kind of chaos. Gone were rehearsed answers and fake confidence. Instead, recruiters watched your aura dance nervously in magenta spirals while you said, "I thrive under pressure," with the sincerity of a dying houseplant. Schools were no better. Imagine a kindergarten class where every tantrum lit up the room like a fireworks show sponsored by Big Emotion. Teachers had to become part educator, part aura negotiator, and part exorcist. Report cards now included emotional progress charts. Billy is excelling in mathematics but continues to emit aggressive chartreuse when asked to share blocks. Social gatherings? A minefield. Weddings were a psychedelic mess, the bride glowing nervous green, the groom glowing mild regret, and the drunk uncle glowing full-on guilt over something he did in 1992. People tried to invent a poker, a game where you bet on what people really felt during small talk, but it was banned after 3 friendships exploded in a single brunch. And let's talk about shopping. Retail therapy now came with a side of existential crisis. Enter a clothing store glowing indecisive pink and walk out with 17 scarves and the crushing realization that you're buying things to fill the void. Store employees, trained in aura reading, started upselling based on emotional vulnerability. "I see you're radiating loneliness. Might I suggest this limited edition glitter hoodie and a body pillow shaped like a golden retriever?" Even pets weren't safe. Cats glowed smugly superior 24/7. Dogs glowed pure love so intensely that humans sobbed just looking at them. Goldfish were found to emit calming glows until you forgot to feed them, at which point they flared out passive-aggressive maroon for 3 days. But the most unexpected side effect of the Aura era? Commuting. Public transport became the ultimate soul mirror. You sit on the subway and be surrounded by a symphony of human emotion. The woman next to you glowing grief because she missed her ex's dog. The man across the aisle glowing victory because he finally deleted Candy Crush. And the teenager in the corner glowing existential dread because he just realized he's never seen a fax machine. To cope, people invented glow blinders like sunglasses for your soul. Fashionable, discreet, and emotionally numbing, they allowed wearers to pretend they didn't see Kevin from accounting radiating embarrassment after that karaoke night incident. Still, for all the awkwardness and the endless updates to the glow code, including the infamous ban on aura peacocking at funerals, the system started to work. People adapted. Because deep down, we wanted the truth, even when it burned. Even when it embarrassed us at PTA meetings or ruined first impressions. Because living in a world where everyone sees who you really are means you get to stop pretending. And in a weird way, that was liberating. Terrifying, yes. Emotionally exhausting? Absolutely. But honest? For once, yes. In the next part, we'll explore the spiritual revolution that followed, when ancient religions, modern philosophies, and aggressive crystal salespeople all tried to answer the same question. If you can see a soul, who gets to define what it means? Now, if you think humanity was going to stumble upon the magical, ever-shimmering display of each other's emotional souls and not immediately start arguing about it, welcome to Earth, where petty disputes and spiritual turf wars are our favorite pastimes, just slightly ahead of karaoke and yelling at our routers. The Great Aura Awakening, as it came to be known in pretentious documentaries narrated by people with suspiciously calming voices, sparked not just a shift in daily life, but a full-blown metaphysical frenzy. Every existing religion, belief system, and lifestyle philosophy, from organized faith to that guy on TikTok who sells sage bundles out of his van, suddenly saw a golden opportunity, pun intended, to claim a piece of the glowy pie. First up were the mainstream religions, who scrambled faster than a televangelist finding out donations were taxable. Theologians met in emergency interface summits with names like Beyond the Glow, Divine Light, or Just Gas, in hopes of agreeing on a unified explanation before the internet got there first. Christians debated whether glowing souls were evidence of original sin or just poor lighting. Buddhists nodded wisely and claimed they'd always known this would happen, but offered no specifics. Hindus smiled enigmatically and asked if anyone wanted chai. Meanwhile, atheists awkwardly adjusted their scientific goggles and said, "Okay, but can we measure it though?" Then came the new wave of spiritual entrepreneurs, known collectively as the Aura Hustlers. You couldn't walk 5 feet without someone offering to cleanse your glow for $49.99 plus tax. Online courses popped up with names like Unlocking Your Inner Radiance and Glow Up and Let God. Influencers posted selfies captioned "Woke up like this hashtag natural glow hashtag soul filter" while peddling chakra-activated ring lights. It was a golden age of nonsense, and everyone wanted in. Every yoga studio rebranded itself with words like vibrational, luminescent, and ascendant, even if all they did was roll people into child's pose and play whale music. Retreats in Bali tripled their prices overnight, and energy drink companies got in on the action with beverages that promised to boost your blue, stabilize your rogue indigos. It got out of hand fast. There was even a scandal involving a popular guru who claimed he could alter your aura's frequency using only interpretive dance and the scent of tangerines. Spoiler, he couldn't. The scientific community tried to join the conversation with their usual cocktail of cautious optimism and smugness. Neuroscientists debated whether auras were a function of mirror neurons, quantum fields, or unresolved daddy issues. Physicists got excited, then immediately despondent when they couldn't explain anything without 15 whiteboards. Sociologists began publishing papers with gripping titles like The Socioeconomic Implications of Aura-Based Discrimination in Post-Glow Societies. Nobody read them, but they did get invited to a lot of panels. And amidst the spiritual and scientific feeding frenzy, one unassuming group quietly rose to power: the librarians. Yes, those bespectacled cardigan-wearing gatekeepers of Dewey Decimal finally had their moment. See, librarians have been cataloging human behavior for centuries, and now that people were finally being honest, glowingly honest, they became the guardians of what was called the Chromatic Compendium, an international archive of aura types, patterns, and emotional subtexts. It became the go-to reference for everything from diagnosing existential crises to identifying whether your new Tinder date's seafoam glow meant they were shy or just gaslighting you with colors. And what of the philosophers? Ah yes, the thinkers. They dusted off their Plato, scribbled into their journals, and emerged from candlelit studies to declare things like the aura is merely the shadow of the soul's yearning, and we glow. Therefore we are. Universities quickly added new courses such as Aura Ethics 101, Intro to Glow Theory, and Advanced Existential Luminescence. A group of nihilists famously protested with signs that read, "Your aura is meaningless, but also kind of pretty." Even cults got a reboot. One group claimed their leader's aura was so pure it could cure acne and student debt. Another insisted only those who glowed a specific shade of chartreuse were the chosen ones, and held weekly sing-alongs called The Light Show. One startup even offered aura insurance, in case your glow gets hacked. It didn't make sense, but the branding was tight. But perhaps the strangest transformation came from within people themselves. As belief systems jostled for control of what auras meant and how they should be interpreted, people started to realize something oddly profound. The glow didn't need explaining. You didn't need a doctrine to tell you that someone glowing violet was grieving, or that someone radiating a calm silver was genuinely at peace. The beauty of the aura wasn't in its doctrine, it was in its humanity. Raw, messy, terrifying humanity. And somewhere between the candle shops, the seminars, and the overhyped glow cleanse diet, people began to do something rare and beautiful. They listened. Not just to priests, gurus, or influencers, but to each other. Glows began to connect people more than divide them. Conversations got real. Apologies got honest. Forgiveness started happening without 10 years of therapy. It wasn't perfect. The world still had war, TikTok drama, and pineapple pizza arguments, but it had light. Real light. From within. And in that light, humanity started to remember that maybe, just maybe, we were all a little sacred. Even Kevin from IT. In the next part, we'll enter the strange frontier of aura-based technology, because if you thought humans wouldn't find a way to monetize and weaponize the soul, you clearly haven't been paying attention. By now, society had more or less accepted that your aura was your new face, your emotional social security number, and your involuntary resume all rolled into one kaleidoscopic glow stick. So obviously, tech companies did what tech companies always do when presented with something sacred and profound. They monetized it, branded it, hacked it, and shoved it into a wearable. Welcome to the age of field tech, baby, where your soul gets an update every Tuesday. An inner peace costs $19.99 a month. Cancel anytime, but you won't because you're emotionally codependent on your glow profile. The first big player on the scene was a startup called SoulSync, whose tagline, "Stream Yourself," was either poetic or threatening, depending on how many data breaches you survived. Their flagship product, like AuraBand, was a sleek wrist device that monitored your glow, tracked emotional patterns, and displayed them in a friendly daily dashboard like a fitness app for your neuroses. You were 62% anxious, 12% nostalgic, and 4% mysteriously horny between 3 to 5 p.m. yesterday. Would you like to schedule a therapist or just eat cake? But they didn't stop there. Soon came MoodLink, a platform that lets you live stream your aura to friends, family, and judgmental acquaintances. It was marketed as emotional transparency for the connected world, but quickly devolved into a mess of passive-aggressive glowing. People posting cryptic glows like "feeling complicated burgundy today, don't ask," and then pouting when nobody did. Naturally, advertisers jumped in like sharks into an open wound made of serotonin. With real-time access to people's glow data, marketing became hyper-targeted and emotionally exploitative in the most beautiful way. You'd walk past a billboard glowing with your aura's exact emotional match. Feeling anxious? Try Pops, the popsicles that slow your existential dread. Feeling angry? Book a rage room with 20% off. Punch your emotions in a safe, consumer-friendly environment. Not even dreams were safe. Enter GlowNest, the first tech company to offer subconscious glow enhancement. You slept with one of their empathy pods on your head, and by morning you woke up with your aura gently nudged towards serenity blue, even if you fell asleep screaming into a pillow about your student debt. They said it was emotionally non-invasive, which is what all dystopian corporations say before becoming a Black Mirror episode. Then came Oros, the operating system that integrated directly into your nervous system, because wristbands were so last decade. With Oros, you could get live updates when your aura shifted, little internal pings like, warning, you are now broadcasting jealousy toward Jacob's vacation photos. It offered auto glow mode, which filtered your most inconvenient feelings and replaced them with socially appropriate glow presets, including calm boss energy, fake happy on a first date, and I'm fine, really. And of course, it had a dark mode for when you didn't want anyone to know you were feeling anything at all. Privacy advocates screamed. Hackers rejoiced. The black glow market exploded with illegal mods and plugins that could override, spoof, or reprogram auras. Criminals used synthetic glows to pass emotional lie detectors. Influencers bought black market plugins to emit constant lovability, even while being absolute flaming disasters internally. One celebrity couple had their public breakup broadcast in a pay-per-view event titled The Glow Divorce, where fans could live stream the real-time or a shifts of both parties as they divided assets and passive-aggressively glared across a vegan charcuterie board. But the crown jewel of field tech wasn't a wristband, app, or implant. It was Soul Mesh, the first global emotional network. Once connected, your aura became part of the real-time collective mood cloud. You could check the global glow forecast like a weather report. Caution, envy storm sweeping the Midwest. Expect spikes in passive-aggressive emails and side-eyes at brunch. Cities adjusted their lighting, traffic patterns, and even municipal music selections based on local mood trends. Some towns instituted glow curfews. If the collective vibe got too ragey, everyone had to stay home and meditate or watch cat videos until their auras de-escalated. But here's where things got weird. Yes, now we're at weird. Soul Mesh started predicting emotions before you had them. Based on your habits, relationships, biometrics, and the contents of your fridge, it could say in 3.4 hours, you'll likely feel abandoned. Might we recommend a hug in this limited edition sad snacks box from our sponsors at Comfort Crumbs? It started correcting your behavior before you felt the urge. It began suggesting who you should emotionally resonate with. It offered connection recommendations based on aura compatibility. People began ignoring real relationships in favor of algorithm-approved matches. Your best friend? Too emotionally erratic. Your coworker? Glow clash. But this AI stranger from New Zealand? Perfect vibrational harmony. And just like that, reality itself began bending around the soul stream. Governments integrated glow analytics into policy decisions. If a population's collective aura dipped below civic contentment beige, funding was shifted toward feel-good initiatives like free puppies, therapy billboards, and interpretive dance squads in traffic intersections. Revolutions were predicted and sometimes preemptively canceled by analyzing glow spikes. Sorry, comrades, your uprising's been rescheduled due to high national contentment. Try again after tax season. And yet, amid the automation, the gamification, the monetization, the mandatory emotional syncing, people started asking, is this really me anymore? When your feelings are tracked, nudged, filtered, and optimized because they still belong to you. If an app tells you to feel joy and your aura complies, did you feel joy? Or did you rent it? A quiet counterculture emerged. Those who opted out. People who threw away their aura bands, unplugged their soul mesh implants, and lived outside the signal. They called themselves ghosts. No tech, no glow. Just raw, unmanaged, unoptimized emotion. Most found them terrifying. But others? They found them fascinating. Because sometimes nothing glows more brightly than the absence of a glow at all. In the next part, the final part, we'll reach the end of this radiant rabbit hole and ask the big blazing question, what does it mean to be human when your soul is no longer private? So here we are. We've journeyed through glowing adolescence or abased dating disasters, government glow tracking, corporate emotional manipulation, and now we find ourselves staring straight into the plasma ball heart of the ultimate question. If you could see everyone's aura, always and forever, what the hell would be left of you that's actually yours? Welcome to the final transmission of What If Horizons, where we ask the questions that make your brain sweat and your chakras file for emotional bankruptcy. And today we dig through the warm, humming wreckage of human authenticity to find out whether your soul is still yours when it's just another data stream. Let's begin with the obvious. Seeing auras was never just about vibes. It became a hyper-visible scoreboard of inner life. Love, fear, grief, jealousy, rage. Suddenly, all of it was billboarded like a neon sign strapped to your forehead. No more lying to your boss about being fine when your aura is screaming tired purple desperation. No more pretending to enjoy your cousin's wedding when your glow is pulsing with boredom in C minor. But also, no more hiding the beautiful stuff either. The glow of forgiveness, the shimmer of compassion, the way your aura lights up like a firework when someone you love walks into the room. For a brief, incandescent moment in humanity's history, we lived in emotional full HD. And it was chaos. Delicious chaos. But it was also connection. The real kind. Messy, unscripted, raw. Until, of course, we tried to fix it. Make it neater, palatable, shareable, profitable. And that's when the soul, our actual soul, began to glitch. We became spectators of our own feelings. Every moment analyzed, scored, graphed. Our aura wasn't a part of us anymore. It was content. Your glow became a brand. A vibe economy emerged where people engineered their emotions for likes, hearts, reblogs, and upswipes. Authenticity became a lighting filter. Vulnerability became a subscription tier. You could now literally schedule your breakdowns for optimal engagement windows. Mondays at 3 p.m., cry and teal. Thursdays, radiate hopeful melon. But here's the kicker. Even as people turned their emotional lives into curated projections, a counter-movement grew stronger, not just a ghost, but something even more subversive. People began to deliberately feel the wrong thing, an aura-based rebellion, smiling during funerals, mourning during weddings, feeling nothing at family reunions, then bursting into euphoric neon at the DMV. They call it emo-sabotage, weaponized emotional randomness. The goal? Break the system. Make the algorithms cry. And you know what? It worked. Suddenly, the great machines of emotion marketing couldn't keep up. Ad targeting collapsed. AI therapists threw errors. Mood-matching apps started pairing people with houseplants instead of humans. Society had out-emotioned itself. So, what now? We stand at the glow line between everything illuminated and everything we used to keep in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, we're ready to ask the scariest, most radical question of all. What if you didn't always need to glow? What if you could just feel something quietly? What if your sadness wasn't a defect to be filtered, but a natural dip in the human waveform? What if love didn't have to be neon pink and socially verified, but instead a flicker you shared in silence, with no audience, no reaction count, and no predictive model waiting to rate it? Maybe the final evolution of aura seeing isn't more technology. Maybe it's nothing. A moment of real presence. No devices. No glows. Just you and another person, uncertain but together, fumbling through the mess of life without a real-time emotional weather report flashing above your heads. A radical return to mystery. Because mystery, that delicious unknowability of another person, might just be the last thing standing between us and full emotional dystopia. So let the ghosts walk freely. Let your emotions be inconvenient, unpredictable, occasionally horrifying, and sometimes completely invisible. Let love be terrifying again. Let sadness be unproductive. Let joy arrive without a push notification. Because if you ever lose your ability to surprise yourself, if your aura always behaves, then maybe, just maybe, you've stopped being a person and started being a product. And let's face it, the world has enough of those already. So here's your final broadcast from What If Horizons. Don't be afraid of the dark. Sometimes the absence of light is just your soul turning inward for a moment. Not broken, not offline, just breathing. Stay mysterious, you chaotic little meat lanterns. And remember, if everyone can see your aura, maybe the bravest thing you can do is not glow back. Hey, glowing legends, if your aura sparked, shimmered, or momentarily combusted while listening to this episode, do your soul a favor and smash that follow button, rate us 5 radioactive stars, and share this episode with someone whose emotional spectrum needs a wild ride. Want to support the show and keep our glow on? Head over to our Patreon, where you'll find exclusive bonus content, behind-the-scenes soul ramblings, and possibly some unreleased aura memes. This is What If Horizons, signing off until next time, when we ask a question so weird it'll make your pineal gland giggle.